Welcome to today's masterclass. My name is Lisa Richter, and I will be your host today. On the off chance that you don't know about CSIA, we are a global nonprofit trade association with over 500 member companies in 35 countries. For system integrator members, the CSIA Best Practices Manual and CSIA certification are some of the more popular member benefits, but you will also enjoy a variety of others, including professional development, learning from your peers, and access to professional services experts, including insurance, financial, and legal, who understand the SI's unique business needs. For partner members, CSIA offers an ecosystem to grow your SI programs, understand your customers' pain points, monitor industry trends, and share your thought leadership. With thousands of qualified integrators and suppliers, the CSIA Industrial Automation Exchange helps SIs, industry suppliers, and manufacturers connect and do business. For SIs and partners, it provides a platform to support your content and SEO marketing efforts, position yourself as a thought leader, and nurture prospects during their complicated buyer's journey. In case you aren't a current member, now is a great time to join. Membership provides you many benefits, including a full lineup of virtual events and other resources for you and your entire team, from accounting to sales to operations, 365 days per year. Plus, CSA dues are prorated, which means that if you join as of October 1st, you will get the rest of 2022 and all of 2023 included in your dues. That's 3 months for free. One last housekeeping note before I turn it over to the speakers. I want to remind you that if you have not set up your new account in CSA's new database, please do so today. Not right now. We want you to stay for the presentation, but sometime soon. This is important because you will need a new login credentials to access member benefits like the upcoming virtual keynote with ITR Economics. At this time, I would like to turn it over to today's speakers. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Lisa. And give me a second while I share my screen here, and hopefully it's visible to all. Thank you, folks, for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Prasad Pai. I'm part of the product management team at GE Digital, and we're really excited to bring to you our newest and what we believe is the only native cloud historian in the industry today. And we'll talk to you about how you and our customers on the OT side can create value using the historian for cloud here. We have it's me, and Shruti has joined me as well. So Shruti will be moderating the session. She'll be helping me answer any questions you folks may have. So Shruti, welcome, and thank you for joining us as well today. Our agenda today is we'll talk about the challenge of why even think of a historian for cloud when so many people kind of talk about time series in the cloud or industrial data historians in the cloud. We'll talk about the challenge. We'll talk about the solution as we have implemented and what it means and what the differentiation of our solution is. We'll talk about how you can get started. A couple of use cases, looking at personas, looking at who a typical buyer would be for a solution like this. And then we'll get into Q&A. And after Q&A, we have to close our presentation, we have Tim Ogden from GE Digital, who is the architect of our system integrator program. He'll share a couple of slides with you, and then we'll close the session. So that's kind of the plan here. So getting started on the content. One of the things we wanted to do as we look at the challenge and the problem definition, we wanted to see what's the issue today. Why is there a challenge in customers trying to even optimize their operations? Or there are multiple customers that you folks, us, have been hearing from, that they want to optimize either efficiencies, quality, costs, but there is always a challenge in terms of how they can go about doing it. One of the one of the key issues that we have seen over the years, and this is not just as it relates to just a regular plant historian. The big challenge that we have had is for enterprises or even plants that have multiple data sources. How do you move that data, which could be from different sources coming in, different vendors, different protocols, different different databases? How do you move all of that data at high scale, or how do you aggregate all of that information at high scale? And sometimes you think that maybe this is a solution only for large enterprises or customers who have who have multiple plants that they need to synchronize across. But the challenge is even for smaller utilities or smaller manufacturers that don't have resources to manage, to have an effective data management policy, something of a low cost, low deployment, low maintenance historical and data management solution can be attractive. And many customers, and we were recently talking to a customer just the other day, where just the having to put a historian on premise, the maintenance, the cost of the infrastructure that has to go in, the networking, as well as the security infrastructure that they have to put in for people to access it, that becomes really challenging. And so a lot of customers kind of don't go in and put in the desired data storage or the data management policies they need, and often that kind of hampers the enterprise optimization efforts or even plant optimization efforts that they may really want to embark upon, right? So that's one challenge that we've seen. Some of the other challenges we have seen is between the silos across our customer organizations. How do you who is entitled to that data, or how does data become transparent to whoever wants to analyze that information, whether it's in water treatment or water utilities, or whether it is when someone is trying to analyze product manufacturing between different plants, or when someone is looking at just to raw material, especially with the whole supply chain challenges. If they want to look at the health of one plant versus the other and decide on what is an effective scheduling, how do you get all of this information aggregated into a single location, so that users who are not normally looking at production data, who are not normally looking at OT data, can look at this information and use that information to drive efficiencies that could be more external to OT, but it could be eventually impacting how the OT efficiency happens or how the production efficiency happens in a plant. So that's one other challenge that we have seen as we go down this path. What we have seen from a trend standpoint, and this is something that a lot of our, as we talk to analysts, what a lot of the analysts have been telling us is the fact that COVID being a significant impact on our industry, that in a way has kind of exposed the challenges of having an on-prem infrastructure, especially for customers who wanted the ability to operate remotely, or who had the challenge of even being able to have personnel go into the plant or go into the utility to work. That started to become a business risk because it was just too closed. What we are hearing from a lot of our customers who have started the journey implementing analytics or AI ML, who have been trying to experiment with AI ML technologies, the challenges in getting connection or access to OT data to make those AI ML projects more effective has been a challenge. And a large part of AI ML solutions today are cloud-based. So implementing those solutions and then trying to connect to on-prem systems has been a challenge where a large part of these projects have either failed or they have not delivered the ROI that folks thought they would deliver. What we're, I think we can all agree that there's a significant amount of IT influence now in customers, and IT is kind of deciding on the technology that will implement, especially with level 3, level 4 systems. We are even seeing customers with level 2 systems down at the SCADA level, where IT is playing a major role when it comes to cybersecurity or deployment of software down at the OT level, where IT has started managing it more and more rather than our traditional control engineers managing it. There's a significant uptick in inquiries that Gartner is seeing, especially when it comes to MES or when it comes to Historian, in terms of how do you deploy these solutions in the cloud, or what would be some of the cloud requirements that customers need to watch out for if they want to deploy these solutions in the cloud. As cloud is becoming more and more popular, as I'm sure you probably have a set of customers where they at least have one solution that is cloud-based that they're using. So the familiarity of a cloud-based solution in our industry is growing. What we have been, as we are tracking the growth, what we are seeing is, especially on private cloud Historian deployments, the growth is a lot faster than what we're seeing as being predicted by ARC, as an example. The voice of IT is increasing. And it is driving the deployment of systems or the use of systems a certain way. They're obviously driving for server consolidations. They're driving for solutions that will be lightweight, that will be easier to maintain, that would be more on a consumption basis rather than the perpetual model that we are all used to for many years here. They're looking at how does OT information move into the data lakes that they maintain. And the data lakes have information related to CRM, they have marketing related information. IT is looking at optimization at a level where they want to have all of this data centrally located so they could implement analytics that benefit the overall organization as well. So that's driving a need for a solution that can support at the industrial scale, providing data to all of these IT folks. So over the years, we've seen customers try to kind of work around some of these challenges with solutions that are available in the market. There's obviously a bunch of traditional historians that are out there, and I think there are as many historians as there are SCADA solutions out there. The challenge has always been, when you try to take the traditional historian and deploy it at an enterprise scale, it requires a significant amount of investment, both in terms of cost, both in terms of the hardware investment that is required, both in terms of cyber access that is required. Some customers have gone down the route of trying to use traditional historians and deploy it on cloud platforms in an infrastructure as a service mode. But the challenge as you deploy it in an infrastructure as a service mode is it starts to get really, really expensive with the amount of data you want to store there. So that's been a challenge with what customers have been trying to do. There are multiple industrial data solutions, or at least that's how these vendors have been marketing their solutions. But one of the biggest challenges that I have seen over the years with industrial data, with hosted industrial data solutions, is you are restricted to whatever the supplier's tool set is in the cloud. The second biggest issue that I've seen from a lot of the customers is that they don't want to put their own data into someone else's cloud, because then you run into proprietary information. You kind of limited by the supplier's infrastructure to provide availability to you for that information. These tech stacks are more designed to support the industrial data solution rather than support integrating into OT level solutions. So they are more designed in the way the suppliers want to run their data solutions. And that's where we've seen a lot of issues where There are startups who have tried this. They've piloted a lot of projects, but we haven't seen an at-scale install of these industrial data solutions as well. And then we have our big IT players with the cloud time series services. And it's a pretty attractive solution, especially customers who already have an agreement with AWS or Azure or the Google Cloud. The thought is that it would be attractive because it would be part of their licenses. But when you start to put OT level data in time series, the volume, the scale of the data, the speed at which the data you need in time series, that's where the limitations start to come in. That's where you run into performance limitation. That's where you run into your costs of long-term storage, especially with our customers needing 3 years, 5 years, 10 years worth of data. That's where it starts to get really, really expensive. And then, the challenge on the robustness of the storage, the guaranteed, the guaranteed storage that industrial customers need for alarms, events, for any particular anomaly that may happen in the production. That all gets very challenging when you start to look at optimizing how much data you put in time series versus how much you don't put in time series. And that's all, that is what gets compromised. So, if I look at those challenges and I look at what problem are we trying to solve with the cloud historian, right? The first and foremost is the market is truly lacking a true cloud native enterprise historian. As I mentioned, there are multiple enterprise historians, but there's really no cloud native historian. That most of the historians will support running on a VM in a cloud, but then that becomes the infrastructure as a service deployment where it starts to get really, really expensive based on the size you need from the historian. What customers are looking for really when they say cloud native historian is that this historian would leverage a cloud technology for its deployment. It should be as easy as going to the marketplace and saying, I need to deploy a historian. It supports data replication. It supports zero downtime upgrades. Every time there's a feature function update that happens, it's as easy as downloading the upgrade from the marketplace. What they're looking for in this cloud native enterprise historian is that the historian should support everything that it supports on-prem as well, which means compression of data storage, which means calculations that it's storage the data storage supports on-prem. So all of the interoperability with your industrial protocols, whether it's OPC UA or any specific PLC protocols or any of the sensor protocols, they expect that this historian will support that interoperability down to the OT systems as well. Simple way of moving mass scale data from cloud to the data lake. And this is an important capability that a lot of the IT folks that kind of qualify a cloud native historian look for is eventually they want data into their data lake so they can run the analytics. How do you move mass scale data there? Because that's where a lot of performance problems come in. And as customers are trying their analytics experiments or AI ML adoption, they're looking for how can they simply integrate some of these solutions into the information that you get from the OT side. And that's been a big request over the years that we are seeing as more and more customers are trying AI ML technologies or analytics on their solutions. So coming to what is our solution here with Proficy Historian, and why is it different? What I'll try to explain is what is the historian and cloud solution and what it isn't. That way, it kind of clarifies the capabilities here. So historian for cloud is a native cloud historian that can be run in a virtual private cloud. So it is not a historian that GE hosts, or it's not a historian where GE is expecting customers to put data in GE's cloud. This is a cloud native historian the customers can take and deploy in their virtual private cloud. It's simple to predict the consumption. It's a consumption-based model, so it makes it easier for customers to push data to the cloud rather than or if the customers already have an AWS instance, then it could be a fixed fee term license pricing, which actually works with their AWS contracts that they may already have. This historian supports all of the protocols that it supports on an on-prem version. It's exactly the same capability of the historian. It supports all archiver compression, the collector compressions to put information in there. It is deployed and managed by Kubernetes. So your scaling, your upgrades are all handled by Kubernetes. It's a very simplified deployment or a simplified upgrade that you do. It supports multi-geographic zone data replication. So you may, customers may have different cloud instances, or they may actually have multiple deployments of these cloud instances that then eventually come into a single, or they present a single data interface for analytics or for any of the UI that they are running. And it supports that the multi-geographic time zone or any of the localization that you may want to do across geographies. We are soon to release export to Parquet, which will allow for a simple data lake and analytic integration for AI ML tools or for any of the cloud data lakes that we have. And it supports legacy data migration. So any historians that customers may have, whether it's in SQL databases, whether it's in files, whether it's in legacy historians, you can migrate that data from on-prem to the cloud. You can send it to the cloud, or you can have a collector that then takes that information and stores locally, but also sends information to the cloud. So I'll first cover what this isn't, and then I'll go to what it is. So this is not a solution where you or the customer has to learn any new technologies. It's basically a simplified deployment, and there's a slide that walks you through how do you go search it on the AWS marketplace and just deploy it. It is also not a NoSQL database that is running in the cloud. It is a true historian with all of its compressions and storage that a operational and an industrial historian will support. It's also not a platform where you have to do custom development. So the historian comes with all of its connections, whether you want that information in Excel, whether you want that information into a UI, whether you need an OPC UA hook into it. It's a platform that it is basically again not something where you go and create your application, or you even start to define how the information gets stored. It's an out-of-the-box historian with all the hooks for you to do analytics of that historical data. And as I mentioned, it's not a GE hosted solution. It's not a SaaS solution that GE provides, which requires customers to send data to GE as well. And so looking at what it is, again, I can't say this enough, but it's a true operational historian architected to take advantage of the cloud. As I mentioned, deployed through Kubernetes, zero downtime when it comes to upgrades, or when it comes to scaling your, tomorrow if you want to scale the deployed cloud historian to store even more data, it's a simple, scale increase that you can do from there. It takes 5 minutes to deploy from the AWS marketplace. And customers who have an existing virtual private cloud in AWS, they could just go to the marketplace and deploy it. It counts towards a customer's EDP agreement that they would have with AWS. So they could, if they already have an agreement, they could just use that agreement, and it helps in using the credits that they may have from AWS to use this. It is fully accessible with on-prem tools. So as I mentioned, you can hook Excel into it. You can use Operations Hub, which is our operations visualization tool. It connects into it. It has full integration into our Proficy portfolio, whether it's SCADA, MES, Operations Hub, the visualization tool, the CSense analytic portfolio. It has full integration into it. And it has a simplified way of moving OT data into data lakes for analysis and IT information. So how can you get started? How can you have your customer get started? You can go to the Amazon Marketplace, search for Historian. It comes up with these results. The customer can deploy the Proficy Historian for AWS, select the commercial model for deployment. If they have credits with AWS, they could choose the term license and use the license they already have, or it could be a consumption pricing model. And I'll there's a slide that talks about an estimated what does the consumption pricing model look like, and then it just starts the subscription process, and you can start using it. It's really within an hour you can get from deciding, saying I need to use this, to deploying, to starting to collect your data. So it's that easy as far as operations is concerned. For IT, obviously you reduce on the costs, infrastructure costs, or the expense of using time series in the cloud, or using other solutions where you use the infrastructure as a service and pay big amounts. So this one is both from a cost efficiency standpoint and a scaling standpoint. It's a very inexpensive solution, even for IT. It runs within the client's virtual private cloud, consumption-based pricing model. So sending data to the cloud is virtually inexpensive. And then it has built-in high availability, right? Zero downtime upgrades. It does not require to have a planned downtime where you have the Historian server down, you upgrade it, then bring it up. It is literally zero downtime upgrades when any new version comes up. Just to quickly go into use cases, when we look at who would be the ideal persona that would look for a cloud-based historian. We've seen obviously CIOs, we have seen head of OT systems or the control systems in charge, or even head of analytics that is looking for OT related data. That would be an ideal person to start a conversation with. When we look at customer types, this could be an OEM solution as well, where the OEM is collecting data from the equipment that is deployed around the world, especially if the OEM has service contracts to manage based on performance. It could be a multi-site manufacturer, or even a small manufacturer or utility that they just don't have resources to have an effective data management policy there. And so it could be any of these customers. When you look at the pain point from customers, it's high cost of data management, high cost of wanting to optimize their operations, limited IT staff and budgets, or even there are customers who have a very siloed approach to how even site-specific deployments happen. I mean, it's not just a function-specific deployment, but even sites are siloed. And if you want, if customers are looking to break those silos, have a view into each of these functions, then this could be a great way to, at a low cost, quickly get all of these sites connected and get this information in there. Again, when we, just looking at from a sales cycle standpoint, typically what we have seen, it's about 3 to 6 months. The initial term that customers would go with would be for 3 years. There are some estimates and averages based on enterprise deployments where customers who deploy 250 to 1 million tags, you're looking at an ARR, annual recurring revenue cost to AWS of about $20K. It could be a marketplace spend if you don't have Amazon credits of about 100 to 400K a year. And the data size that you are looking at per year that you can store for this cost is about 1 terabyte. So it's a significantly lower cost as what you may see when you use time series or use infrastructure as a service. And then as you get into, there could be discussions around if customers have credits or they're using their own private cloud. There could be, depending on data sample ingestion or query volumes, we can actually have more private cloud pricing with the customer as well. Typical use cases we have seen so far with customers who have gone down this path. Again, customers needing an industrial historian or an operational historian. They want to reduce their IT costs and total cost of ownership of a historian, or customers looking to aggregate data across their enterprise, or customers who have different data sets, variety of sources, could be SCADAs, DCSs, could be IoT sensors that have to come bring in data. This historian, as the on-prem version, supports MQTT as well to put data into the historian. So you could leverage, if you are going down the path of consolidating all of your OT connections into MQTT and then sending that data information up, there is an MQTT collector that you can fire up and use that MQTT interface directly into the cloud for the cloud data historian as well. So that's those are some of the use cases as you start to think about customers. Is if you think about public-private water utilities who are looking to manage multiple different smaller utilities and drive a get to a enterprise view of how these different smaller utilities are being managed, or what the cost is, or how can they optimize. They could be a attractive customer to go with a cloud historian based solution as well, because they would want all of these disparate utilities which could be using different control systems, or they could be using the same control systems on premise to bring that information to the cloud. So that could be one piece there. We are using GE Aviation is using Cloud Historian as well. What we expect is that by we are bringing on 32 manufacturing plants that will send data to a historian in the cloud. We are expecting that the infrastructure costs will go down by 20%, and it'll reduce the annual resource cost by about 185K for aviation. And the big thing here is it is eliminating more than a month of planned downtime, especially whenever there's a change to be done on historian. And then it's a common data store that can be used by different employees that today don't use OT data, but would like to have OT data to drive some of their decision making. They can also access this information as it gets to the cloud. So that's kind of a big use case, especially when you look at aviation data that we collect. It's a large amount of data, so it's a highly scaled historian in the cloud for us, connecting 32 manufacturing plants, which are huge manufacturing plants that produce lots of data. So that's kind of a good use case for us. So with that, I would like to get to questions if there are any, and then once we're done with the questions, then we can hand it over to Tim.
All right, that's where I come in. Hi, it's me again. I just, forgive me if I'm asking a question that you've already answered, because I don't know what I'm doing, to be honest. So just be patient. Can you handle data migration from other vendors' legacy on-prem historians? This one came from the audience.
Yes, you can. Yes, we can. Yes, so we can. Now it can be, our good old trusty import export of the data. If you based on the file format or the storage format it can have, or if the legacy historians support OPC-DA or OPC-HTA or even OPC-UA, then you can do that. I mean, we actually have collectors, so we can connect that collector directly to the historian and put that information in the cloud. And Shruti, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else in terms of getting this legacy data migrated over?
Yeah, sure, Prasad. So adding to that, today, the data migration from other vendors like OSI Pi or Wonderware, we have some migration utilities which we give to data to migrate the data to the on-prem historian. So the same utilities can be used to migrate data to cloud historian as well.
What benefits is GE seeing from using Proficiency Historian for cloud in your own factories?
So, like I mentioned on the slide that talked about the aviation use case, the biggest obviously the savings in infrastructure cost. The other benefit is having an enterprise view. With aviation, it is 32 different manufacturing plants across the globe. So having a view of how is each plant performing, having a dashboard that looks at certain metrics around each of the whether we call it health metrics or efficiency metrics across these plants, having one view that kind of creates a transparency between or a comparison between these different plants there. One of the metric that the IT was trying to drive is reducing of that planned downtime, which I think right now what they're seeing is about a month a year of planned downtime that they can reduce, which is again a significant cost benefit. And the goal is to get to a 20% saving. So as we bring each of these 20% savings in infrastructure as well as resource costs. So as we are bringing these plants up, that's where the IT is driving towards saving those costs.
Yeah. And additionally, like customers who have made the mental leap to move to the cloud don't want to increase investment in on-prem. So CIOs, CDOs want to spend more dollars to further enable transition to the cloud.
What would you say is the best way to prioritize digitate, you know what I mean, efforts if there are multiple plants?
So I'll give my perspective, and then Shruti, you can chime in with your perspective as well. So I think almost all of the customers that I've been involved in, when customers say they want to do digitization, the knee-jerk reaction for most customers is we want to do analytics and first find out where to optimize or where to improve our operations. But what we often find out is most customers don't either. They have data stored in so many disparate locations that they cannot really get effective use of their data, or they don't have enough data to go down these projects. So a large part of the effort or the first step in digitization would be even to find out if they have an effective data management policy. Can they aggregate all of that data in one place so that they can start to do some advanced analytics and just make data available to multiple users, because that's the first step. I mean, making data transparent, or as some of the analysts say, going down the data democratization aspect is probably the first step. That's the most effective step. I mean, without having data in the hands of everyone, I don't think digitization is possible for our customers. And usually, a lot of customers want to take the top-down approach, but it doesn't go anywhere because they don't have the basic infrastructure set up to manage data, to collect data, to kind of standardize or normalize the data that is coming out of their plants. And Shruti, you want to add something?
No, Prasad. So I totally agree. So with the cloud, which lets them create new value from the data by enabling AI ML workloads against the data to create new insights. So as you were talking about GE aviation case, they have data in 32 different sites. So now we are working with them together to get the data to migrate to the cloud to have one central historian, so which gets more value add when they perform, when they want to use that data to perform some analytics and get some value add from their data.
When can customers start seeing ROI from implementing this solution?
Within an hour, they can start collecting the data, and then, if they're, they can experiment with whether they have the right data or no. In my opinion, they can start to see ROI within a month's time, because again, this is, as I mentioned, it's a consumption-based model. So it's when you go to a cloud deployment, it's not a big upfront cost that you are paying versus paying for a big on-prem enterprise historian. So you can start to get your ROI almost, I would say at least a week's worth of data that you have for history that you can start to analyze. You start to immediately gain that ROI, because you might not have paid anything to AWS or GE for that matter in the first week or the first month, and then you start to gain your insights, right? So to me, it's an almost immediate ROI as you deploy this.
Yeah, there is huge savings on infrastructure setup, and there's no administration and monitoring involved, because with the cloud technologies where you have monitoring solutions like CloudWatch, which helps you send notifications, alarms if there's an issue. And on top of all this, you have complete control on resources. It's not a SaaS solution, it's a cloud native.
Okay, so I have one final question, unless somebody pops up in the audience. Is there a trial version of the software to test?
Shruti, you want to take that?
Yeah, so as Prasad was showing you through the slides, you have two models of Proficy Historian, a consumption model and BYOL model. So BYOL is you bring your own license with which you get a demo license of the historian. So with which you could do some basic operations. You have some minimum set of tags which you can add and perform some basic set of operations. Yeah. And you could always reach out to our sales team if you would like to get more add-ons to it.
Yeah, I noticed the contact info was posted in the chat. So anybody wants any other questions, feel free to reach out to anyone on the GE Digital team. And now we have a cameo. Oh, wait, we have another question. Can you talk a little bit about handling large loads? We have 14 million tags in our current environment, hundreds of users and thousands of analysis and calculations.
So Shruti, you want to take that?
Yeah, I can take this up. So so this is kind of enterprise scale setup. And as we were talking about, one of the key feature here, which is scalability. So based on your load, so you mentioned 14 million tags. So there could be the write rate, could be like 1 second per each tag, like which is like 14 million samples per second. So based on your load, the write rate you are getting up, the cloud historian automatically spins up new instances of the server, which could handle any number of load.
So I'm sure if anybody has any other questions, they can reach out to the GE team. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer them. But now we have a special guest, cameo by Tim Ogden. And if you want to introduce yourself and let folks know how you're related to this whole thing.
Sure. Well, first I want to thank everybody for attending this session. And yeah, hopefully you found it somewhat informational. My name's Tim Ogden, and I run our systems integrator solution provider program for GE Digital. A couple of things I wanted to follow up with was really just, for those that are new to historian or maybe GE's historian, we've got a wealth of information available, and from self-paced and instructor-led courses. So if you need to learn more about the on-prem, cloud, or hybrid historian solutions, we have the information there. And it looks like the text is whited out on some of those. We'll have to correct that before we post those slides. In addition, for those of you that are on the call today that may already be program members, just as a reminder, all of our builder badge certifications, and our self-paced and instructor-led training courses are free to you. So just wanted to make that reminder. For those of you interested in becoming part of the solution provider program, there are no charges to become a program member. What we do, it's all based on the internal development licenses that you need. So why don't you go ahead and flip to the next page, please? You know, and just as an overview of our solution provider program, it's a multi-tier framework. So what that basically means is that we have 3 different levels. So a member, gold, and platinum, and it's really based on your relationship preference. If you just work on more specifications as they come through, that's a member level. If GE is your preferred platform and standard, that's more of a gold level. And then if you leverage GE as your primary platform, that's more of a platinum level relationship. We also segment our partners into 2 different levels. So one is industrial automation focus or manufacturing execution and MES. So if you're using our product stack for more MES and things like that, what we do is we reference you to our customer base based on that. Now you can be both. It doesn't matter to us. It's really your decision. And then what we do is we put in a lot of work and effort with competency and development programs for our SI community. So hopefully we can get you ramped up quickly if you have interest. You know, over 95% of all GE digital software is delivered by our SI community. So we depend on our SIs for deploying this. So if Historian or any other GE products are of interest to you, we'd love to hear from you. I've also added 2 additional slides in the deck. And what those slides are for is just to give you a background on the program and some of the details. But by all means, feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions. And again, I want to thank you for your time today and listening in.
Thanks, guys.
Back to you, Lisa.
Thank you so much. My colleague Jennifer will put up my final slides. We're almost done, I promise. On behalf of CSIA, I would like to thank our speakers for this informative discussion. I would also like to thank GE Digital for sponsoring this event. And of course, thank you for attending. I'd also like to remind you that a recording will be available for viewing within the next couple of days. Be sure to bookmark the CSIA events calendar so you don't miss any upcoming events. One last thing, as I mentioned in the chat, one last thing, be sure to check your spam folder for any CSIA emails you may have missed. Even better, whitelist CSIA so you can stay up to date. This concludes our program for today. Once again, thank you for joining us and have a great day.